welcome to this video on motivational conversations / effective communication, which is part of my pro-social modelling series. Now these last two videos, motivational conversations and building good relationships, are actually quite difficult topics to discuss because they're the type of subjects that come out of the other elements of pro-social modelling that we've talked about. A lot of natural leaders will have these skills anyway, and they're much more of the soft skills that are much harder to articulate, and there's much less sort of modelling behaviour in the way that we do these. So they're slightly harder to explain, which is probably why you'll find these videos are going to be slightly shorter than the previous videos. As I said, these are sessions that used to be half-day sessions, so there is plenty that you can build into them. But the key thing to think about this topic is, how can I motivate people with my conversations and the way that I talk to people? How can I communicate effectively? Now, the key thing with this really, I think, is we should really call this video, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. That pretty much is motivational conversations. I used to run this section with some of my senior cadets, so these are people who are 17, 18, with younger teenagers. And there was one guy who used to absolutely love running this session. What we did was we had cohorts of people come through the leadership training course, and then the people that really stood out as natural leaders out of those classes, we would invite them back. We would do train the trainer courses with them, we would teach them how to train, and we would let them teach sections of the course, which was absolutely fantastic for their training skills, their leadership skills, and really helped them develop within their units. And this one guy used to absolutely love doing effective communication, because the session would always start out with a little practical exercise where he would write on the flip chart, or whoever was leading the session would write on a flip chart, "I didn't sleep with your wife." Give people a few minutes to think about it. What does this mean? What is this saying? And you will get people saying, well, you didn't have an affair with whoever you're talking to with their wife. The key part to that is it's all around how you say it. I didn't sleep with your wife. I didn't have an affair with your wife. I didn't sleep with your wife. It wasn't me, but somebody else might have done. I didn't sleep with your wife, so it wasn't your wife, but it might have been somebody else's. I didn't sleep with your wife, but maybe your sister, your aunt, your daughter. You don't know, do you? It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that's really important to think about in effective communication and motivational conversations. It's all to do with sending and receiving, and you can look up, there are all sorts of books and studies and texts and massive research done around communication. So if you're interested in this subject, then it's probably a good idea to get some of those and have a little bit of a look, because this is really just going to brush the surface of communication. But the key to communication is about the sender and the receiver. What am I saying? How am I saying it? Influences how you receive it and how you then understand it. Now, we could look at things like Batari's box, which is my attitude affects my behaviour, which affects your attitude, which then affects your behaviour. And there's all sorts of things that we can look at around communication, walls, barriers to communication. That's another really good exercise if you're doing a session on communication, is get everybody to, with a post-it note, write down what they think is a barrier to communication, and then stick it up on the wall, and each of those post-it notes becomes a brick on a wall. So you get things like disability, culture, religion, language, the weather, your location, technology. These are all things that are barriers to communication. So these are all things that you need to think about when you are having conversations with somebody. If you're having a sensitive conversation with a member of your team, then you're probably, if you can avoid it, not going to want to do it over phone. You're definitely not going to want to do it over the phone where they're on a speaker, where other people can hear them, or where the line is so poor they can't understand what you're saying. Also, you don't want to give them bad news if it just affects them when you're talking to your full team on a conference call. So there are ways about dealing with communication. When we think about the ways that we ourselves communicate, what we say actually only makes up 10% of the message that the person or the receiver actually receives. So what I'm talking to you about in this video now, pretty much only 10% of it is going to be what I'm actually saying, the words that are coming out of my mouth. The next 20% are going to be how I say them, the language I use, the tone that I use, the speed with which I talk. For example, you know that I'm not panicked or scared or anything like that because of the way that I'm talking, because I'm talking to you in quite a measured way. Hopefully I'm talking in a way that is slow enough and clear enough for you to understand. So there's about 20% of what I say communicated to you, how I say it. The other 70% is through body language. Now, obviously this is quite difficult, particularly if you think about how everybody's been working on Zoom recently, virtual calls, Teams, all those kind of virtual video conferencing calls. That's quite difficult to perceive somebody's body language. You hopefully can see that I am standing, talking to you. I do talk with my hands quite a lot to convey points, so hopefully that's conveying to you that this is a subject that I am interested in, that I want to share with you, that I want to bring us together on, things like that. That's all part of my body language. You probably noticed actually, if you've watched this series all the way through in one go and you've binged watched it, you'll probably notice that in the first couple of videos I was stood up quite straight, and in this video I've just noticed myself, I'm stood in my kitchen, I've got my radiator behind me, and I've just been bouncing my bottom off the radiator. And that's all body language, and what that might be telling you if you've watched this video and been watching my body language, and it's probably more noticeable if you watch all these videos all the way through, is that I've been standing in my kitchen for an hour or so, and my knees are starting to ache. So I'm a little bit, could sit down right now. But I am still standing up and I am still talking to you. That was my radiator objecting to me leaning on it. But if I was kind of stood like this, let me just move the camera slightly. So if you could see me, and obviously you're not going to see my head because I've got the camera zoomed in, but if I was stood against the wall like this, and I'm leaning and I'm talking to you like this, first of all, that's not really very professional. Secondly, it is very uncomfortable for me. It doesn't look very good, but equally, does it look like I know what I'm talking about? Would you trust someone that's just like, I'm not interested, I'm closed off, I'm not really wanting to share anything with you? That would tell you more about how I feel about the subject if I was stood like this and I was talking to you like this. Then probably you get the message that, and you see I have to turn to talk to the camera now because it's very hard for me to talk to people that way because I am actually interested in the subject. Let's get you back on my face. So although you can't see much past my shoulders, you can see that I am actually conveying, I hope, fairly positive body language as opposed to closed, unreceptive, uninterested body language. So it's really important, first of all, when we think about motivational conversations and effective communication, that we think about what we're saying, how we're saying it, and what our body language reflects. And then we need to think about how do we actually then start having conversations with people. Now, to motivate a team, then having conversations with them, and this links into building good relationships with people. So I'm only going to touch on this briefly, but obviously knowing about people and talking to them helps build a relationship with them. So a really good way to motivate your team is to find out a little bit about them. If you are sat at your desk and somebody walks past and goes, "Hey, how was that holiday? Oh, how did you get on when you went to Finland? Oh, how's the dog? Has it recovered from the vets?" Anything like that. People like talking about themselves, and people like knowing that other people want to talk about themselves. So by sharing information about your team and about yourself with your team, now obviously there's an extent around privacy and what's professional to share, but little things like, how are the kids? Did you do anything interesting at the weekend? Just showing that you're a little bit interested in somebody will help motivate them and make them think that, well, that person's now actually interested in me, so maybe I should give a little bit back. A really good way to do this is a game called Two Truths and a Lie. And I've used this for icebreakers, for training, for all sorts of different training courses. It's also really good for team building exercises. So if you are a new leader, or you just want to kind of step outside of the office for a little bit and have a little bit of a fun afternoon, then Two Truths and a Lie is a really good game to play. It will help you learn a little bit about your team and you will then have something to talk about, which will then help motivate them as a team member, thinking that you as a leader are invested and interested in them as a person. So the way that 2 truths and a lie works is everybody has to think about 3 facts about themselves. 2 of those facts are going to be true and 1 is going to be a lie, and everybody has to guess which one is the lie. So this has the bonus that you are going to be learning 2 true facts about each member of your team. So you need to try and remember those. Obviously don't sit there with a notebook and write them down, because that then makes it feel like you're not interested in the game and the team and kind of contradicts what you're trying to do. But you will learn 2 facts about your team members. And probably you will learn something else as well, because the way the game is played best is if your 2 truths are actually quite unbelievable, and then you want your lie to be believable. So what people tend to do is pick something and lie about something similar to what they actually have done. So what happens when they explain which one is the lie is they then elaborate and explain why it's a lie. So they might say that they, I don't condone riding elephants, but if they rode an elephant in Thailand, the lie might be actually they did ride an elephant, but it was in Indonesia. I hate that example, I really hate that. Don't ride elephants, it's not good. But I don't know why that popped into my head. I can't think of anything else now, and now all I'm thinking about is poor baby elephants. So you will probably find that their lie also has a basis in truth. So this is a really good way to think about 3 things about your team. And actually 3 things is all you really need to know. You need to know, good things to know are, do people have pets? What are their pets? What are their names? Because then you can ask them how Fred is getting on, how is Fido, how is their lizard, how's their snake, what happened when they went to the vets last week. This is something that will help motivate people because you are interested in them, so therefore they think that you're interested, and it will motivate them. Find out their kids' names, find out what hobbies they've got, do they like reading, what books have they read recently, and this also helps with other aspects of building good relationships we'll look at in the next video. Is if you talk to somebody about their hobbies, then you help understand their likes and dislikes. And if, for example, at Christmas time you're a boss that's expected to buy gifts for your team, then by talking to them throughout the year, for example, I read a lot of books, and last year I'd set myself the challenge of trying to read a book a week, so I wanted to read 52 books within the year. And I get quite invested in the books that I read, and I like to tell everybody about the stories if they're really good. So I would go down for lunch, read my book, go back to my desk and go to my boss, oh my goodness, you'll never guess what's just happened in my book, and then explain the story. He's listening and he's engaging in that, and we've had conversations about it. And by having those conversations, I'm motivated because he's interested in me, he's interested in the things that I'm interested in, and that makes me motivated. And quite often after those conversations I'll be like, right, okay, let's get back onto work. But also for Christmas he gave me 3 books, and he gave me 3 really good books which were kind of crime thriller books, police procedural type book things, which is the genre that I absolutely love, and I will absolutely fly through them. So not only did he know that I was reading, that I liked reading books, and I was challenging myself to read as many books as I could, but he was also listening to the type of books that I was reading. So when I opened those Christmas presents on Christmas Day, I was like, wow, he does actually listen when I talk about all this random stuff. And that made me feel really good. So that's just another example of how talking to somebody about something that isn't necessarily work related can actually be motivational. So it sets the tone for your team, and it just makes them feel like you are invested in them as a person rather than just a payroll number. Now the other thing is that you need to be careful about how, obviously I said how you talk is only 20% of the message that is received, but if you're constantly just like, oh guys, we've got to do another project, I know we haven't quite finished the last one, but now we've got to do another one, this one's going to be even longer, and probably going to have to work on Saturday, that isn't motivational. So again, and did you see then I slumped, without even thinking about, I was trying to change the tone of my voice, but actually naturally by changing the tone of my voice, I actually changed my body language as well, and although again you can't see because of the way the camera is, I kind of snatched my shoulders forward, I dropped my hands down, stuck my chin out, and I was just like, ugh. And the whole of my body language also changed with the way that I was talking about that. Whereas if you come in and you go, look guys, you've done a really, really good job. We absolutely nailed that last project, and because we did such a good job, we have been given a new project to do. This project is even bigger, it's going to be even more challenging, it's going to be something that we can really get stuck into, and we can really show the business exactly what we are capable of. Exactly the same project, exactly the same manager, exactly the same task and the same team, but the two ways in which you deliver it are completely different. So we just need to make sure that we are communicating effectively, clearly, positively, and we think about what am I saying, how am I saying it, how is my body language, and how do I want the tone for the team to be set. Am I going to be really, really depressed and everything is just like really boring and it's a little bit of a hard job, but we've got to do it? Or am I going to take this as a positive, see it as a learning opportunity, as a development opportunity, a new interesting challenge, it's going to make the days go quicker? The two different ways that you talk to your team are really going to motivate them. So just think about how you talk to people, and hopefully you will soon get the knack of effective communication and motivational conversations. Now, as I said, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent on this one. That is because there's no like, this is the model for how you communicate. Because how you communicate is a personal thing, how the person receives it is a personal thing, the way you converse with somebody is going to depend on who they are, the barriers that you have, where you are and what you're talking about. So it's quite a fluid concept. So hopefully I've managed to capture the general themes. I will probably do a little bit more about communication separately outside of the pro-social modelling umbrella, but hopefully that has helped you a little bit think about effective communication and motivational conversations. Comments, leave them in the comments below. We have one more video left in our pro-social modelling series, so I will see you soon.